Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Genesis chapter 20, verse 1 through chapter 22, verse 24. Abraham journeyed from there to the Negev region and settled between Kadesh and Shur, while he lived as a temporary resident in Gerar. Abraham said about his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God appeared to Abimelech in a dream at night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken, for she is someone else's wife." Now Abimelech had not gone near her. He said, "Lord, would you really slaughter an innocent nation? Did Abraham not say to me, 'She is my sister'?" And she herself said, "He is my brother. I have done this with a clear conscience and with innocent hands." Then in the dream God replied to him, "Yes, I know that you have done this with a clear conscience. That is why I have kept you from sinning against me and why I did not allow you to touch her. But now give back the man's wife. Indeed, he is a prophet, and he will pray for you. Thus you will live. But if you don't give her back, know that you will surely die along with all who belong to you." Early in the morning, Abimelech summoned all his servants. When he told them about all these things, they were terrified. Abimelech summoned Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? What sin did I commit against you that would cause you to bring such great guilt on me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." Then Abimelech asked Abraham, "What prompted you to do this thing?" Abraham replied, "Because I thought, surely no one fears God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. What's more, she is indeed my sister, my father's daughter, but not my mother's daughter. She became my wife. When God made me wander from my father's house, I told her, 'This is what you can do to show your loyalty to me. Every place we go, say about me, he is my brother.' So Abimelech gave sheep, cattle, and male and female servants to Abraham. He also gave his wife Sarah back to him. Then Abimelech said, 'Look, my land is before you. Live wherever you please.' To Sarah he said, 'Look, I have given 1,000 pieces of silver to your brother. This is compensation for you, so that you will stand vindicated before all who are with you.' Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, as well as his wife and female slaves, so that they were able to have children. For the Lord had caused infertility to strike every woman in the household of Abimelech, because he took Sarah, Abraham's wife. The Lord visited Sarah just as he had said he would, and did for Sarah what he had promised. So Sarah became pregnant and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the appointed time that God had told him. Abraham named his son, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him, just as God had commanded him to do. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, "God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." She went on to say, "Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have given birth to a son for him in his old age." The child grew and was weaned. Abraham prepared a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah noticed the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, the son whom Hagar had borne to Abraham, mocking. So she said to Abraham, "Banish that slave woman and her son, for the son of the slave woman will not be an heir alongside Isaac." Sarah's demand displeased Abraham greatly, because Ishmael was a son. But God said to Abraham, "Do not be upset about the boy or your slave wife. Do all that Sarah is telling you, because through Isaac your descendants will be counted. But I will also make the son of the slave wife into a great nation, for he is your descendant too." Early in the morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He put them on her shoulders, gave her the child, and sent her away. So she went wandering aimlessly through the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she shoved the child under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down by herself across from him, at quite a distance, about a bow shot away, for she thought, "I refuse to watch the child die." So she sat across from him and wept uncontrollably. But God heard the boy's voice. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and asked her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the boy's voice right where he is crying. Get up, help the boy up, and hold him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God enabled Hagar to see a well of water. She went over and filled the skin with water, and then gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew. He lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. His mother found a wife for him from the land of Egypt. At that time Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now swear to me right here in God's name that you will not deceive me, my children, or my descendants. Show me in the land where you are staying the same loyalty that I have shown you. Abraham said, I swear to do this. But Abraham lodged a complaint against Abimelech concerning a well that Abimelech's servants had seized. I do not know who has done this thing, Abimelech replied. Moreover, you did not tell me. I did not hear about it until today. Abraham took some sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech. The two of them made a treaty. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs apart from the flock by themselves. Abimelech asked Abraham, What is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs that you have set apart? He replied, You must take 7 ewe lambs from my hand as legal proof that I dug this well. That is why he named that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. So they made a treaty at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba. There he worshipped the Lord, the eternal God. So Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for quite some time. Sometime after these things, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham. Here I am, Abraham replied. God said, Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him up there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will indicate to you. Early in the morning Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took 2 of his young servants with him, along with his son Isaac. When he had cut the wood for the burnt offering, he started out for the place God had spoken to him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham caught sight of the place in the distance. So he said to his servants, You two stay here with the donkey, while the boy and I go up there. We will worship and then return to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on his son Isaac. Then he took the fire and the knife in his hand, and the two of them walked on together. Isaac said to his father Abraham, My father. What is it, my son? He replied. Here is the fire and the wood, Isaac said, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son, Abraham replied. The two of them continued on together. When they came to the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. Next he tied up his son Isaac and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand, took the knife, and prepared to slaughter his son. But the Lord's angel called to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he answered. Do not harm the boy, the angel said. Do not do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, because you did not withhold your son, your only son, from me. Abraham looked up and saw behind him a ram caught in the bushes by its horns. So he went over and got the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord Provides. And it is said to this day, In the mountain of the Lord provision will be made. The Lord's angel called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, I solemnly swear by my own name, decrees the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will indeed bless you, and I will greatly multiply your descendants, so that they will be as countless as the stars in the sky or the grains of sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the strongholds of their enemies. Because you have obeyed me, all the nations of the earth will pronounce blessings on one another, using the name of your descendants. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set out together for Beersheba, where Abraham stayed. After these things Abraham was told, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor, Uz the firstborn, his brother Buz, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Now Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These were the 8 sons Milcah bore to Abraham's brother Nahor. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore him children, Tebah, Gaham, Tash, and Makkah. So, quite a few things here. You have Abraham leaving the land where he was staying, that is by the oaks of Mamre, and traveling out into the land. And this was done after the punishment that was meted out on Sodom and Gomorrah. So Abraham didn't want to stay in the land there anymore, and started to wander. And as he was wandering, he said, of Sarah, his wife, who was 90 years old at this time, that he is his sister, that she is his sister and not his wife. And to that end, it appears that Abimelech, this king, took Sarah as a wife of his own. Now, it's possible that this was more of a political statement, because Abraham was very powerful himself, having much property. And so it might have been a political alignment. But it's also possible that Sarah was physically rejuvenated at the age of 90. And I guess that also makes sense, because she would have to have the biological functions to raise a child. So, yeah, but as opposed to the moral high ground that Abraham took during the Battle of the Kings, where he refused to be made rich by the pagan king of Sodom, he accepted this gift from Abimelech. Yeah, Abimelech was in the right here. Abraham was definitely in the wrong. Then you have Isaac being born, and Ishmael turning against Isaac and subsequently being banished from the household, and God providing for Hagar and the boy out in the wilderness. And then you have the famous binding of Isaac here, where God says to Abraham, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him up there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will indicate to you." Yeah, so yeah, there's been much talk about this particular passage, but I think it's important to note that as they're going up the mountain, he tells his servants to stay there. In 22 verse 5, he said to his servants, "You stay here with the donkey while the boy and I go up there. We will worship and then return to you." So he says prior to this whole thing that that we both will worship and return to you, essentially. That is, that he expected to come back down with Isaac. And Hebrews goes on to talk about this particular passage as a example of faith, where Abraham reasoned that God could bring Isaac back from the dead, and in a way he did. So yeah, and I think this is also a picture of salvation, because you have here God providing the sacrifice in place of us. Oh, also, I can't remember exactly the passage, but there's a passage that I think it's also Hebrews, where it says that since he could swear by none greater, he swore by himself. And in 22:16, the Lord's angel called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, "I solemnly swear by my own name, decrees the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son," and so on and so forth. Yeah. And that's another reason why the Lord's angel is God, because He speaks as God and swears by none other than himself. Okay, carrying on. Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 through verse 29. Watch out for false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are voracious wolves. You will recognize them by their fruit. Grapes are not gathered from thorns, or figs from thistles, are they? In the same way, every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad trees bear bad fruit. A good tree is not able to bear bad fruit, nor a bad tree to bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then you will recognize them by their fruit. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. Only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, and didn't we prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and do many powerful deeds? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Go away from me, you lawbreakers. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. The rain fell, the flood came, and the winds beat against the house, but it did not collapse, because it had been founded on rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the flood came, and the winds beat against the house, and it collapsed. It was utterly destroyed. When Jesus finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed by his teaching, because he taught them like one who had authority, not like their experts in the law. Yeah. So here you have Jesus telling them to watch out for false prophets and to judge those who prophesy by their fruits, of whether or not they're yielding good fruit or bad fruit. And I think that's important, and definitely an important thing to keep in mind. And then it goes on to this passage where it says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. Only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, or do many powerful deeds? Then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Go away from me, you lawbreakers. Now, the issue here isn't that they call him Lord, Lord, but that they don't actually do the work of the Lord. Sure, they were used by the Lord, perhaps mightily, to cast out demons or prophesy in in God's name. But as far as prophesying in God's name goes, Balaam, the son of Beor, who prophesied to Balak that Israel would be blessed and not cursed. He was the one who rode the talking donkey. Eventually, Balaam led Israel astray by sexual immorality. So even though he was used of God, he never submitted to God. And likewise, in your name cast out demons and do many powerful deeds. There were a sect of the Jews, well, not a sect, a group of Jews who were going around casting out demons, and were particularly casting out demons in the name of Jesus through Paul. That is, I adjure you by Jesus, whom Paul worships, come out of them. And famously, the demon said, Paul I know, Jesus I know, Paul I know, but who are you? And then he chases them all out of the house naked. So yeah, it's not so much the active power of God being worked in one's life that's important. It's whether or not they had this relationship with God and actually came to God. So Yeah. Builds their lives upon God. Like the end of 7:24 through 29 here. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them is like a wise man who built his house on a rock. They won't be swept away. And finally, carrying on rather. Psalms chapter 9, verses 1 through 12. I will thank the Lord with all my heart, and I will tell about all your amazing deeds. I will be happy and rejoice in you. I will sing praises to you, O Sovereign One. When my enemies turn back, they trip and are defeated before you. For you defended my just cause. From your throne, you pronounced a just decision. You terrified the nations with your battle cry. You destroyed the wicked. You permanently wiped out all memory of them. The enemy's cities have been reduced to a permanent ruins. You destroyed their cities. All memories of the enemies have perished. But the Lord rules forever. He reigns in a just manner. He judges the world fairly. He makes just legal decisions for the nations. Consequently, the Lord provides safety for the oppressed. He provides safety in times of trouble. Your loyal followers trust in you, for you, Lord, do not abandon those who seek your help. Sing praises to the Lord who rules in Zion. Tell the nations what he has done. For the one who takes revenge against murderers took notice of the oppressed. He did not overlook their cry for help. And finally, Proverbs chapter 2, verses 16 through 22. Continuing about how wisdom will shield you, to deliver you from the adulteress, from the sexually loose woman who speaks flattering words, who leaves the husband from her younger days and forgets her marriage covenant made before God. For her house sinks down to death, and her paths lead to the place of the departed spirits. None who go into her will return, nor will they reach the paths of life. So you will walk in the way of good people, and will keep on the paths of the righteous. For the upright will reside in the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be removed from the land, and the treacherous will be torn away from it. Yeah. I think it's important to always keep in mind that sin takes you farther than you want to go. And here you have somebody being tempted by an adulteress, and that act leading to a path of death. So, yeah. It's important to fear the Lord and thus acquire wisdom. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.